everyday converted man here. I've got the Atheist Underground, an entire underground on my channel. Rob, so you run the train that is our escape from the insanity.
I do. I got my train hat here, but I figured I'd go without it.
But, hopefully we won't derail the conversation.
It's like watching a train wreck. Right?
Yeah.
Here goes my phone. See?
Whoa! There we go. It's already.
Yeah. I told him I couldn't talk right now. But, yeah, the train. I started the podcast with some people, and we just were hashing out names, and someone said, "How about the Atheist Underground?" Just meaning like, atheists tend to be closeted or, kind of a subsector of society. And when they came up with that name, I said, I like the name. And it reminded me of the London Underground, which is the subway system, obviously, in London, for anybody who doesn't know that. And I've always just happened to be a train fan, had model trains growing up, and always my grandparents were train people. I never worked on the train or anything like that, but it's in my blood, so I just kind of ran with the metaphor. And then it also reminded me of the Underground Railway, where when you throw the train in that mix, you get the Underground Railway. And I said, all right, well, why don't we try to, we'll picture ourselves as an underground railway for psychological emancipation, where we try to break people free of the slavery that their minds have been abused of, in a psychological way through religion. And it took until I got on TikTok for someone to actually say, "Hey, nice way to like appropriate, cultural appropriate the Underground Railroad," And I was like, "Get the fuck out, really?" Know what I mean?
That stuff just gets under my skin. Where everything is offensive to somebody. It's like, look, the world's not going to stop spinning just because you got upset about whatever. So,
the idea that the Underground Railroad was an exclusively black venture is silly. I mean, that could have never happened without obviously illicits in the North,
Right, and then of course there was the one that rescued Jewish people, and the idea of that has been around a long time. So it doesn't belong to any one group or anything like that. I just don't understand that sort of political maneuvering that people do. Whatever.
It's like politically correctness gone.
PC, all that stuff. It's beyond the scope of logic, so I try to leave it alone.
Right.
So did you have any sort of religious upbringing yourself?
Yeah, I went to church regularly. We were a church-going family, but we didn't go to a hardcore, super preachy, conservative, biblical, literalist, fundamentalist church. We went to a nice mainline Protestant congregationalist sect in New England. It was, the Bible was seen as large, not just the Old Testament. It's like we knew that half of the New Testament was likely, written to be taken as allegory or parable. And Jesus spoke in parables, you know what I mean? So no one was ever like, you have to believe this. Questioning was welcome. Skepticism was welcome. We learned about other world religions in my Sunday school class. It wasn't, it was and I had a good time. I wasn't under religious trauma. I had a good time in church growing up. And it was a fun way to see my school friends on Sunday, really, And,
it's very close to, now they have some atheists have begun to run churches, secular churches. And I wonder, this is kind of that motif. It almost seems like it's very close to that. But was there still an overtone of faith that, that you had, altar calls or things like this?
Not really. Nothing like that. Nothing like altar calls. I mean, we were taught that the Bible was the inspired word of God. No one even pretended it was like the literal inerrant word of God. We had to admit that there was contradictions in it because there is. And it was just sold to us as you try to live like Jesus lived, or like they told us Jesus lived, and you tried to be good to people and turn the other cheek and not make war for no reason. you know, and not be. It was a decent experience. Really, it was like that thing when the Christians, you know, look at you and say, well, you know, religion gives us you a moral center in the best kind of way that it can. It sort of did for us, and but
yeah,
coming
really,
out of it was easy. Once I realized that I could think for myself when I got to be 16 or 17, and you just can't buy the unsustainable mythology anymore. It was easy to leave religion after.
I mean, yeah, it almost sounded like they did a lot of the hard work for you in a way.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly
look,
right.
if you want to stay on board, you can. If you can't, whatever. You know, we're not pushing it. I mean, that does sound more fair, more a secularized version. I wonder how sustainable it will be, because churches usually, you know, need to grow and need to continue to have people to survive because they need the money coming in. You know, but it's quite possible that a more secular version could work. I've pushed for that from time to time. That it does appear that many people need religious motifs or aspects. That there is something about the ritual or tradition, you know, that can be, if we could separate it from the, you know, say, look, this is just a story. We're not going to pretend it's real. That we could, you know, use it in some useful manner. I think that that's entirely possible.
That's what we lost in American Christianity.
American,
you know?
Yeah, I mean, you said Europe or
no, New England.
New England.
Yeah,
okay.
Connecticut. You know, I was in Connecticut. So,
okay.
Really, the home of the founders. You know, and the religious denominations that the founders belonged to. If they weren't deists, they were what I was raised in. They were Congregationalists, First Baptists from the north, Methodists. They probably called Dutch Reform at that point, or Anglicans, which became Presbyterians. I mean, Episcopalians and Presbyterians and, you know, Calvinists, you know, those kind of denominations. That's what the country was founded on. Those denominations, and for, you know, most of the next 150 years, those denominations dominated American Christianity until the whole born again kind of revolution, starting with Billy Graham in the 50s and moving on up to Reagan and the Just Say No years, and, you know, W, you know, making a fucking a cabinet position for religion. I mean, come on. It all got retro. It all went real conservative in my experience, and we lost the reasonableness of those good mainline Protestant faiths. You know, that's most of those people just didn't take the religion too seriously, and all of a sudden it became, you know, you have to believe every word the Bible says. And evolution is wrong, and science is trying to disprove God, and isn't that horrible? And I don't buy it.
I mean, it really is a kind of a crapshoot of where you're born, that, you know, what you get exposed to as far as how strange the beliefs are, the systems are, and that's one sort of argument that is, well, not even an argument, just kind of a point that many have made. It's like, yeah, okay, you were born in America. Okay, you're probably going to be a Christian. Like, you know, where you're born has you know, that's a high probability of what religion you're going to start out in.
Right.
And yet the religious go, well, but that doesn't make it, you know, false. It's like, no, you're missing the point. We're just saying that if this was designed, it wasn't designed very well. This seems very much like a human endeavor, not a clever. You know, if you were to set about creating a world where you wanted to reveal yourself in certain ways, you certainly could come up with something better than, you know, this mess.
Yeah, that's right. That and the fact that, you know, people, if we'd have been born somewhere else, we wouldn't be worshiping Jesus necessarily.
Right, exactly. And I've been struck lately by how this one apologist I'm looking at is acting as if the world already knew about Jesus, like, the whole time. Like, he's like, you know, he brought up other religions, but in very brief summary of them, really quite a straw man of them, and just acted like, well, the Hindus, they don't explain Jesus. It's like they were around before Jesus. They didn't even know about Jesus until goodness knows when. Like the Christian missionaries had to make their way over there before they knew anything about this. Of course, they're not going to say anything about this. It's ludicrous. And the one guy, another guy I was talking to, I said something like that. I was like, to think that God appeared in this very small speck of the world. It's like, well, but everybody knows about Jesus now. I'm like, that's not even true. But, but that's word of mouth. That's not, God could just appear in the sky or something to all of us at the same time. Like, oh, you're demanding that God does, stuff.
Right.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Word of mouth and conquering armies,
Right. So, what is your main motif? Because you've got a lot of short sort of videos kind of made more for TikTok, it looks like. I've never dabbled in that area myself.
Yeah, if you go back in our YouTube, we have some other stuff but right now, where the TikTok blew up so much that it takes up all our time. And so my producer, who helps out, just thought it'd be a good idea to go ahead and post those shorts on YouTube, hoping that people's attention span lead them more to the short stuff anyway. But we've actually put longer stuff on YouTube, and we have other stuff coming out that's more like documentary style, longer. One on circumcision, that's an hour long probably. It's just taking us a long time.
Ironically, the one on circumcision is the long one.
That's funny, but it's true.
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, it's still very much you have to opt out of that in America, and it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't even be offered. It should be that the kid can decide when they're old enough, but it's just automatic unless you say something.
Right.
And that's so weird because there's no real reason to do it. There's no health benefits. I mean, unless something's wrong,
No,
that's
not at all. And then doing the documentary, I learned so much about it. And the one doctor who helped me out, he was actually a lawyer who worked for Doctors Against Doctors Opposed, Doctors Opposed to Circumcision. .org. Look up them if you want info. This guy, he said, cutting healthy tissue off a healthy baby it's just unethical. There's no other way to frame it other than religiously, as in a Jewish circumcision rite or ritual that Christians adopted, because there was a misconception of the health thing, and it became a cash cow for the medical industry in America. That's really what it comes down to. It's the fourth most common surgery in America.
Really? Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's just part of. It's like I don't even know how much it costs on the bill or whatever. It can't be too much, but I mean, there's all, and of course, then when you see the more ritualistic ones I've seen, where you have you see the guy putting his mouth on the genitalia area to stop the bleeding and things like this, and it's just what is how is this? How is that not crossing the line? Because there is that fine line of, yes, we want freedom for religion, but there is a line to be drawn of you went too far. Now you're not. You're not allowed to do that. Like, you couldn't have a religion doing human sacrifice, right?
And there were babies who came up with herpes from Orthodox rabbis doing that. It's mostly like ultra Orthodox Jews who do that. Right.
It's not common.
Yeah, it's not common, but again, it's religious exceptionalism. They don't say anything about it.
There was a conservative Catholic sect that had done this as well. That I'd stumbled onto a video.
I wonder why they do it. Wonder why they started.
Well, the Catholics, don't be they're doing all sorts of weird things.
They are.
Do you what troubles you most about any given religion? Is it primarily, you know, because we deal mostly with Christianity in America, but Islam, of course, pretty darn scary with, you know, what they've, you know, shenanigans they've been up to. But what for you is the most troubling in that regard?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things, and you hit on one of them, and it's fundamentalism. It's people who take it to the extreme, to the point where they're not even following the loving tenets of the religion anymore. Where they're, you know, I think rightly Islam, you know, good Muslims will point out that Muhammad said that you're supposed to respect other religions, but they don't. The fundamentalist extremists in Islam are murdering Yazidis in Iraq, and they're murdering, and they blow up Buddhist statues. And they have no tolerance whatsoever for other religions, and neither do Christians in America. Maybe they're not quite as violent, but you know, the very act of missionary work is intolerance. In my view, it's intolerance. If you can't tolerate someone else's native religion enough to leave it alone, that you have to convert them to your religion, how is that tolerant? That is a contradiction in and of itself in Christianity. And the other thing is childhood indoctrination. It's been shown that, you know, kids who are indoctrinated into religion before they're 5 or 6, they have a very hard time, A, telling fact from fiction, B, ever like being able to question that later in life. You know, a lot of these parents will say, well, I'm going to raise them Christian, and then they can choose on their own when they're 18. No, sometimes they can't.
Right.
If you're not a strong-minded person like I am, you know, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I just mean that I'm a type
I mean,
A,
if you're told the whole time, you know.
Yeah, but a lot of people are crippled emotionally and psychologically and intellectually forever from childhood indoctrination, and that's not right. You're that to me is child abuse. When you take away a child's ability to think clearly, you're abusing that child. So, you know, that and the invasion on our government. We're supposed to be a secular nation, and we have no atheist voice. We have no secular demographic out there. We have no representation in Congress. And everything that Congress does.
One senator.
There's one guy. There's one guy. I don't know if he's a senator. Yeah, I think he's a rep. But either way.
Yeah, whatever he was, I don't remember. But I remember that he did the. They all take turns doing the benediction thing, which I don't. That's, you know, it just makes no sense to why even have it, because, you know, it's like, look, we're not paying you to pray. We're paying you to vote on whatever the bleep it is, or do your job. You know, this is it's kind of like gotten that way with sports, where now I think that I'm not too much into sports. I'm not a sports type of guy, but I, you know, read things, and that many of the sports teams are now just removing the whole, you know, singing national anthem or whatever, and the it's Olympics, I believe it was the Olympics had put into place that you're not allowed to kneel, you're not allowed to do any, you know, like go like, you know, fist or anything like this, because it's not a, you know, this isn't for politics. We're doing this sport. That's what we're here to do.
Right.
And you know, I guess it got, you know, it's tradition at some point that started with the national anthem in baseball, and you know, that's fine, I guess, but then, you know, you have a moment of silence, and then all of a sudden you've got prayer in there, and it just doesn't really fit. It's like, I don't get it. I don't know how. I
don't know why I was never in sports.
Yeah, you know, I never was really into sports, but it's just weird how all that gets conjoined. Where it can make a headway, it seems that it will get in there.
Right. But you're right about the civil part of it. Is like the civil government exists to solve civic problems and civic issues for all the people, not just religious people, you know. And so why is religion even involved? It's divisive. It doesn't represent all of us.
Yeah, I mean, why start? We're going to start by praying, and we'll have this person pray. And then when the atheist did his thing, he just thanked science and all this. And it was quite amusing to hear the thing, but it was just like, it's a waste of everybody's time. I mean, you know, you're going to have people that are uncomfortable. You're going to have people irritated. I mean, why bother? You know, leave that at home. You know, it's not, I'm not paying you to do that. So anyway, I don't know. But yeah, that line is one of those ones where I'm always cautious about giving government more laws because they already have a lot of laws, and it's already, who knows what law you might be breaking now,
Right.
that you got to, and so it's like, well, if we push their law against indoctrination, how would that even be enforced and all that sort of question. So I think that something like that would be more like, I don't know how we would change that other than just getting out the information to
exactly
adults,
right. It's about
like,
re-educating the public. You're right.
Yeah,
You
like,
can't,
yeah.
we're not going to be able to have laws like that, I'm sure.
Right, yeah. What's the weird? Have you interacted with a lot of I'm echoing here? I don't know why. Have you interacted a lot with theists on your channel, or?
A little bit. I try to stay out of the arguments with the trolls who get going on there, because it's just a rabbit hole. You're not going to change their minds. And it blows my mind that they try to get on there and convince us. Would you love if people get on and like throw Bible verses at us? Oh God! You know what?
Oh, I never thought of that before.
Yeah, so I don't get it. I let the other commenters take it up. Honestly, because whenever I do, I regret it.
Yeah. Are you're at all interested in the more logical sort of debate, or do you, again, it's just that's not your thing?
Yeah, I don't really. I mean, I listen, but I'm not a debate guy, and I never enjoyed debates on any real subject, not just religion. But again, it's like banging your head against the wall. Why do I want to debate someone who's never gonna change their minds, who's never gonna actually use logic? Because and the guys that are good at it, there's a chance that they make you look dumb because they have their arguments lined up. The creationists who have it, they have their shit memorized, man, and they have this circular logic. And if you don't know how to answer it, you end up looking like an idiot. And nobody wants that to happen to them. So, but it doesn't really interest me, debates with philosophers or religious thinkers. So yeah, I try to stay away from that too.
What I suppose a good question would be the typical one of what would convince you that there was a God, or even maybe the question of what is God might have to come first before we could even ask what would convince us.
Yeah, it's the atheism question. It's like the concept is so esoteric that to try to investigate the nature of it is a folly. It's a silly, futile effort. There's no sense in it at all anyway. But I mean, God would have to present himself and say, "Here I am. This is where I've been, and this is why I've been such an asshole." Acknowledge their existence. It's the idea that someone like that would need worshiping is what escapes me. If there is a creator, I'm more likely to think it's a giant alien that's able to hide from us on the other side of the universe. And that our universe is either a simulation or incredibly tiny by comparison, even though it's incredibly large compared to what we know in the world around us. It's unthinkably large. It's unimaginably large. But that doesn't mean that that entire universe, that largeness, is not a speck of dust in a larger universe.
Right. We're in that little marble, like in Men in Black.
Yeah, right, exactly. I didn't think about that, but on the cat's neck, right? That's
I mean,
that's more likely. If such a creature exists, then I guess they deserve respect for the powers that they have that we don't have. But do they deserve worship? Are they going to punish us eternally, or are they
I wouldn't know why they would care if we believed or didn't. What we thought. Exactly. It's like they would be so beyond that. It's like
they clearly don't, because they don't interact.
Yeah, exactly. I mean? Like it doesn't.
If they were out there and they cared, then they would actually interact, and we would all know. And there wouldn't be any atheists, because we would all understand that there is this great being out there that, whether they're good or bad, they at least interact.
Well, what about other supernatural or paranormal things like afterlives or extrasensory powers or anything of that nature? Is all that bunk as well?
So far, I don't know to admit that it might be just science that we don't understand. Things like deja vu and ESP, and I mean, there might be just ways that the mind works that we don't really understand yet, and some of that might end up being legit. But until they actually discover it, quantify it, get some empirical data to look at and write about it in a way that we can all examine and peer review, it is all just anecdotal bunk.
Do you think that it's basically that science is the best tool we have, and everything kind of somewhere under there is philosophy, or do you think that you have to have philosophy then science? Because this has been an ongoing argument. I think.
Yeah, no, I don't buy that at all. If science is all we have, it's just a method for finding out the truth, and if what we found out turns out to be wrong, science adjusts.
Right.
Philosophy is just one step removed from religion. It's just someone's musings on the nature of our existence, and it's been shown that there is no reason for us to exist. We're just another animal on the planet that's happened to evolve to a point where we can consider these things. Our mind is complex enough to actually question the nature of our existence, when really there is none. We're just here to reproduce and keep our species going like every other cockroach.
Yeah,
I never bought that. Philosophy bores me. I think
it's remarkable that we have this sort of reality that we have, and it's remarkable enough without adding more to it. It's good in storytelling to have magic, because you can then do things with it, but you have to give it limits, or else the story becomes unmanageable. The moment that you have the Deus Ex Machina, you're done. There's no just. In fact, they used to that the whole idea of that would be that the early playwrights would have the god come in and end the play and just solve the problem. That would be the end of the play.
Right.
And it's like, I mean, it'd be that you're done. It's like no problems now. Bing. Right. Oh, okay. Yeah. And then there's no challenge there. So I think that there has to be some limit. There has to be some challenge to overcome, or it's not interesting. What talked about a little bit about railroading. Of course, there's the classic trolley problem. What is the solution? You have one person on this track and 5 people on that, and do you switch it, and why? Or do you have any interest in those sort of thought experiments?
I don't even know what you're talking about, honestly.
Oh, the trolley problem. Okay, so the trolley problem is you're on a trolley heading down a track, and there's a split, and on one track is one person. And the train is headed towards a different track that has 5 people on it. Now you have the lever you can switch over that will switch to kill the one person instead of the 5. And then the question is, do you switch it or do you leave it? And then it gets a little bit more complicated after that.
Yeah, like if you kill the one person, did you kill Einstein? And if you save the 5, did you save 5 murderers?
Right.
And
most people answer that they would save the more people over the fewer, but then you make it more difficult. You say, okay, let's say that you see that there's a train barreling towards a group of people, but there's a very large person you can push over that will stop up the train. It will derail it, and it will save those people.
Yeah.
So do you push them over now?
See, these are problems that if the problem was actually in front of you, you wouldn't have the time that we have to think about it.
No, yeah. The whole
it would
point
be an instinct, and you'd have to just make that call. I would jump off the trolley and let someone else deal with the problem.
It's not my problem. Somebody else. Right? So long. Good luck. That is one way to advocate it to somebody else. And there is a whole psychology of the paralysis of help, where the person is calling for help and there's a group of bystanders, which is why it's been said say there's fire, yell out fire, because everybody will call for help for fire because fire can spread.
Right.
And that part of the training I had as an EMT was you point at somebody and say, "You go call for help. You go do this," and you point out single people to go, and you tell them what to do because they don't. In that moment, they're paralyzed. They don't know what to do because they, this is unusual.
Yeah, and most people are followers. They want to get. They want to get into
the group think is really interesting. Do you have? You said you had some model railroads. Is that something you? Is that a hobby?
Yeah, they're not really set up. We're gonna set it up and do a bit on the TikTok, where I actually throw bad comments under the train. So that's coming. But these things are slow. Like I said, we all have jobs. It's hard to just spend all day.
My uncle in his small backyard had a miniature train you could actually ride in, and
those are sweet.
Yeah,
nice.
And I mean, I don't know how long it took them to build and
oh
do
my
it
God,
all, but
that's a rich guy's hobby.
Yeah, I suppose so. I know people do it with roller coasters as well. They do like homebrew roller coasters. That's like next level. It's like, well, when I have lots of money to throw around.
Yeah, taking your life in your hands. They're a homemade roller coaster.
Yeah. Well, they're probably safer with the train. The train was fun enough on its
own.
But it was great times to ride that thing and to drive it around and be pulled around by it because we had little flat cars that would go behind it. Just great stuff.
Yeah.
So anything other than let's see, we talked about training, talked about religion a bit, about your channel, but anything else that you want to throw out there that's on your mind or something that's crossed your path as something to deal with?
That's what I can think of off the top of my head. Well, there's the whole. I've had dealings with the school district because my kids, and also we were talking about in the civic institutions. A couple of ways that the Christian nationalists are able to affect change in their favor are simply by Christian teachers proselytizing in the classroom. If you're not a vigilant parent, you will run into teachers in the elementary school system and beyond that will infuse their lessons with Christianity and Christian nationalism, and they'll teach kids things that they have no business teaching kids. And I came up against this in the Kenosha school system. And if you Google Kenosha atheist dad, you will get a news story from the Milwaukee News where they came down and interviewed me about my kid's fourth grade teacher who littered her walls with Bible verses, and it was over the top. Like, teachers wears a cross, that's fine on your neck. Everybody's got a cross on their fucking neck. But this, God bless America, one sign in the classroom, it's the national motto. We can't do a lot about that. This chick had Bible verses from Galatians and from the Gospels up on her wall, advertisements for Christian concerts. Come worship with us.
Yeah.
It was over the top. And she offended pagan kids in the class, and my son stood up for him and opened my eyes to the problem. I didn't even know what was going on, and I went and found out, and the principal refused to do anything about it. So I finally said, this is what's going to happen, man. I belong to FFRF. I run a chapter. If I have to have the lawyers write a letter, you're going to be embarrassed, and it's not going to go good for you. And I gave them months to take this down, and they never took it down, never admitted it was wrong. And everything that I said was going to happen happened. I called FFRF. They wrote a letter. The letter forced the school district to hire their own lawyers to come and look at everything. It cost them money. They ended up going through the whole school district, taking down anything that they found like that. They wrote a letter, basically apologizing for the teacher and defending her. But they did take the crap down because they knew it was wrong and it was unconstitutional and flatly illegal, as a matter of fact. But if you don't get involved and watch that, it'll happen all the time. And there might be a kid whose parents just aren't religious, but they're not militant atheists like me. and so they don't really care what happens. And then all of a sudden they got a Christian kid, and again, they don't really see it as a bad thing because it's not drugs, it's not, prostitution, so they're not really upset about it. Now their kid just wants to go to the youth group, and he ends up, being brainwashed by somebody that's not them.
I think that the moment that you have the Scientology teacher doing the same thing, and then the Christian winds up Christian kids, they'll cry foul on that.
Or a Muslim, imagine, or an atheist.
Right. Yeah. I can put there's no God on my walls, and
there'd be hell to pay. There would be hell to pay.
You got to keep that out of there.
And we know people who've gotten fired for that. So
now I'm seeing the more political ideologies creep into universities, of course, and now it seems that they're trying to get some of this into schools. This what they're calling critical race theory, which is neither critical nor a theory, and this stuff is some scary stuff. I mean, it's right along the lines of religious indoctrination with just utter nonsense that they're trying to force the teachers to teach, and it has nothing to do with anything. It has absolutely no bearing on reality, as far as I can tell. I mean, it's something you gotta, whether it's religion or political ideology, it seems that the vigilant fight to keep those things out of schools is still sadly ongoing.
It really is.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to know we got people out there that actually are doing something rather than going out. And I was complaining lately on Kazami channel that here's these people protesting. It's like, you're not making any difference at all. You're not doing anything. You need to write letters. You need to campaign. You need to hire what do they call it, the people that go special interests, sort of types.
Lobbyists.
Lobbyists, right? You need to hire a lobbyist or whatever. At least then you might make a difference, right?
The other thing that happened, and then I got to jump off, but the county government in Racine, north of here, was giving grant money. There was public grant money available for community groups. If you started a community group for homeless kids or whatever, orphans or autistic people or something that served the whole community, there was money available for you to get a grant for your thing. The grant was being given to Youth for Christ over and over every year. $50,000 a year. In the first year, they got $100,000 because no one's paying attention. And it's just bureaucrats in the county deciding. They're looking at applications and deciding. So it's not even the elected officials necessarily. It's like a clerk or a board of a county. And they're just arbitrarily deciding that, oh, this looks really great.
Yeah, it looks like a charity or whatever, so they can get away.
And all it was a mission to convert people to Jesus Christ. And again, if you were a Muslim family and your kid joined that and he ended up being converted, you'd be pissed. They have no right to do that.
Of course, if the shoe was on the other foot, they'd be screaming bloody murder from the top.
And it'd be just as wrong because the government has no business, promoting a religion, and that's really what was going on there. So we got that stopped too with another letter.
All right.
It takes vigilance, man. It takes vigilance. It takes activism. Get yourselves out there. Don't be afraid to say you're an atheist if you're not going to get beat up or disowned from your family or fired from your job. Tell people. When people say something like, well, thank God for the rain today, I tell them, I'm like, you know what? It was going to rain today whether God was there or not. That's the way I'm an atheist. I'm nice about it. I'm like, what? I'm an atheist. I don't want to talk about that shit because it's just irrelevant. And a lot of it is just habit. And people are like, oh, okay. And they're cool with it, because it is. It's just speech. People are like, oh, thank God. Thank God for that. Thank God the doctor saved my kid. What? What are you talking about? Thank God for that medical procedure that didn't exist 20 years ago.
Did God pay for the medical surgeon to go through the college?
That's what I mean. I'm like, really?
Right. Yeah.
Like, did you fix those steps so I don't fall down? Yeah, I fixed those yesterday. Oh, thank God. What? I just told you I did it. What do you mean? Thank God.
Thank me.
Right. Yeah. So,
I did the hard
come
work.
out and do what you can, everybody, and be strong. And watch. Just keep an eye on the government. Keep an eye on what they're doing, and question your politicians and the schools too. So that's what I got to say about that.
So when's this documentary or that you're gonna have coming out? Or do you know?
I don't know. I gotta push my guy. He's so busy with other crap. Yeah, it might.
Okay.
It's just this close to being done, but I don't know. I'll push him on it again. Maybe we can get it out there pretty soon. Yeah,
okay, well,
I've
got your channel linked in the comments, but do you want to shout it out and tell people to buy stuff or whatever you want to do? Go for it.
Yeah, Atheist Underground is on Cafe Press. You can buy gear at cafepress.com/Atheist Underground gear. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. And TikTok is very popular. So that takes up most of our time. But look for Atheist Underground everywhere you can. The podcast is available on iTunes and Stitcher and Spotify. So you ought to be able to find that too. Working on a new episode of that. It takes a couple months for me to get them out. Because they're highly edited and I'm busy. So, but yeah,
I've enjoyed a lot of the content you have, and thank you for taking a stop at this particular station. And I guess it's time for you to roll on out.
You got it, man.
All aboard. All right.
Appreciate you. All right, man. Hit me up anytime.
Thank you.
Take it easy. Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. And we're done. I got nothing left to add. So, peace out.